built from the ground up has been really inspiring. And when I first started to dip my toes in the pond and maybe even considering entering this world, I was told, you need to look up Stacy, like she's your person. So I've definitely been following you, been very inspired. But you, like, this amount of community engagement is amazing, and I just want to say that this is what democracy looks like. We chant that, right? And this is what it looks like, y'all being here on a Saturday and learning about little old me. So, but my goals are similar. I also want to create community and increase civic participation. That is vital. It's like so important to get us out of this dumpster fire that we're in right now. Also kind of acknowledging this shared trauma of the administration that we're all in together. So being able to be in a room of like-minded people, and I think that that's very empowering and that's important, and that's also something I want to build. But like when we have these bad feelings, I always say, do you remember that at the end of The Inconvenient Truth, he gives that proverb that says, when you pray, move your feet. So I feel like that's what I'm trying to do with this candidacy as well. But also, I mean, selfishly, I'd like to be the first woman and the first Democrat to serve in the Senate for District 37 and maybe be the woman that gets all that sense. So let me tell you who I am so you can feel comfortable with me when you see my name on that primary ballot. I'm your neighbor. I'm a Cobb homeowner. I'm a mom of 4 kids that have all gone through public school, and one of those is at KSU right now. The other one is KSU. I'm an Air Force wife, retired. My husband served 29 years in the Air Force, but I'm also soon to be a Navy mom. So my son is graduating at the end of May, and he has an ROTC scholarship, and he's headed up to Virginia Tech with the Corps Cadets. And he has decided to give his life to service. I can't talk about this very much right now because I'm compartmentalizing so hard, and it will make me cry. So I always say it's one thing to be a military spouse, but now that I'm transitioning to be a military mom, it's very different. And I have major skin in this game, which is one of the reasons why I'm stepping up to serve my country and get involved at politics at the state level. I know a lot of you know a lot about Kirkwood, because you go there for postcard parties and whatnot, but I'm actually an elder at Kirkwood Presbyterian Church. So that is my church home. I'm so proud. I basically picked it because they had flags flying outside and their signage out front. So I knew I needed my people. I've lived in Georgia for 6 years, and that community is very important to me, and I'm very, very proud to serve my community as an elder at Kirkwood. In my past life, I've been raising kids for 20 years. In my past life, I worked in high-tech PR is where I got my start. And then since then, as I've been momming all these kids with the husband in the Air Force, who also was then flying a civilian job, was never home. But I was trying to work still. So mostly in nonprofit marketing and a lot of volunteering. But here's the weird things I care about, because I was told that I could not have a laundry list of 20 things on my website, that I had to narrow it down. But, I also really care about recycling, get really excited about litter pickup, the waste management and recycling. I like to collect old books. I have far too many. I really care about refugees and Afghan refugees, and that's a whole other story about how I've worked in that community. I spent some time writing extensively about the Tuskegee Airmen and the women Air Force service pilots of World War II, so I could nerd out on that all day if you want to talk about that. But I also really care about getting a response from elected officials, which I did not get from mine, which is why I'm here. So let's talk a little bit about why I'm running. I took a Harvard X class. You all remember when those came out after the election? There was a bunch of universities gave free classes. I'm going to go do that. So I took a class called Civic Engagement in a Constitutional Democracy, and it was a really great reminder of the stuff that we learned back in grade school and junior high school that we need to be reminded of, and that, wait a second, government is meant to be for the people, by the people, and why am I allowing them to gatekeep me out of this experience? I always thought you had to be a lawyer or own a big company, and all these things that I realized were false, and so that really changed my perspective. I have a lot of lived experience, and as they say, lived experience is political experience. I've raised a family. I'm a military spouse. I've been caring for aging parents. We've been through my father passed away about 12 years ago, and my stepdad passed away about 6 months ago, unfortunately. So I know what it's like to care for an aging and a dying parent, and to navigate the world of Medicaid with a dad that was really sick from the time he was young, and to know what hospice is all about and why these things are so crucial to our community. I've been uninsured myself. Like, my life has not been roses and sunshine. I know what it's like to exist in the world without medical coverage, and I've seen what my parents have gone through, and that's real stress on real families. I know what it's like being a broke young girl trying to survive. I came into the workforce when the .com bubble burst, and then 9/11 happened, so I know what it's like to try to make your way in that world when all the chips are against you, and that was really challenging. I also know what it's like to start out later in life without a penny to your name, and 2 kids to support, and only an alcoholic ex-husband in your rearview mirror. So these are real experiences. I know what it's like to suffer. I know what suffering families are going through. But I also know the joys of seeing life completely turn around, and how to work hard for that kind of change, and knowing that there is that blue sky there can be ahead. So now I have serious concerns over the future for this country, for my children, especially in my ability to retire myself. I think those that are elected with the privilege to represent us should focus on real problems and real families. I get tired, like a lot of you, of seeing lawmakers carve up bills for culture war politics, and I just feel like that wastes valuable time and resources, and I'd like to do something about that. But like I said, the gaps in coverage are really problematic. My dad was diagnosed with a brain tumor when I was 11. And we dealt with a debilitating illness. He actually lived a really long time, which is very unusual. So he lived 27 years. So I was involved in his care along with my mom. But then I know what it was like when he had to go on Medicaid in his young 60s, and knowing what that gap was like coming off of not being able to work and having COBRA coverage and then trying to get government assistance. And by the grace of God, he went into a coma like weeks or months after the Medicaid kicked in. Otherwise, it would have been absolutely devastating on our family. And he lived many years after that. But I know what that stress is like. My mom went through a breast cancer diagnosis, and then she was not able to be insured until the ACA came along. So I know why these things are important to families. But rolling into my key policy points, I think it's a lot of things that we all care about in this room. Healthcare, I want to keep the government out of private decisions between patients and their doctors, but let's read between the lines, and that means women's rights and trans rights. We need to fight rising premiums and healthcare costs. We need to expand access to ensure that no one falls through the cracks by closing these gaps in the coverage, because we know those exist and they're very real. Affordability. We need to address these rising costs of living. I read the other day that more than half of Americans now don't earn enough to cover their basic needs. In the United States of America. Like, this is absolutely absurd. We need to stop passing the cost of data centers onto families through higher utility bills, and stop the sweetheart deals. That just seems so basic to me. Keep private equity out of our housing market so Georgians can afford to own a home. And in public education, we need to protect that Hope Scholarship so every Georgia student has a path to an affordable college education. I love the Hope Scholarship. I have 4 children. God bless the Hope Scholarship. Yeah, and really changing pathways for students that might not have that, and expanding that and keeping it robust is very important. But we need to keep schools safe. I got 4 kids that I put through public schools. It breaks my heart that I'm raising children in an era where they have to exist with lockdown drills. I've lived all over the country. I moved to Connecticut months after Sandy Hook happened, and we lived in the next town over. That was so visceral, like to know families who had lost children. And where is our line in the sand? I don't know, but we have to do something. And I think that there are things that I'd like to be a part of at the state level to address that, especially as a parent. And then give kids the future they were promised by all of us, and invest in their futures. But with healthcare, we need, again, keep those government out of those private decisions. fight the rising premiums. I talked about all this already. But voting rights, let's talk about voting rights. We need to protect our right to vote. That is very concerning here in Georgia, especially with the SAVE Act that was trying to be pushed at a higher level, and then, the Georgia version trying to come through here. When my mom moved here, we went through an instance where she already had our real ID in Arizona, so we're trying to get her ID here. We had to jump through so many hoops. Did you know? Like, they wanted her original marriage license. We had to dig that out.
A certified
and then they wanted it. And then they held it up to the light. They're like, no, this isn't good enough. You need a certified copy. So we had to order one from the state of Oregon, from Umatilla County, and paid $100 for it to get here because I wanted her to be able to vote. And that was the biggest thing. And so I saw all those hurdles that we had to jump through just to get her ID here in Georgia. And I thought, oh my gosh, if this happens on a national level, all of us married women and the married women coming after us, we're out. We're going to be completely disenfranchised because not everybody's going to be able, with the time and the resources that I had, in order to secure that vote. And that is voter suppression. We need to call it what it is. Address gerrymandering, prevent mid-decade redistricting and unfair manipulation of electoral maps. That's a basic. We need to be better. We need to increase civic engagement. At the very least, making sure every Georgian feels empowered to participate in their democracy. But that's get out and vote, but that's also attend things like this. Follow your elected officials, hold them accountable, increase transparency. As elected officials, we need to do a better job of providing those constituent services, which means being transparent and inviting people into the process and not blocking them out by ignoring their emails. That's what happened to me. And I've been learning, like I said, this has been a huge learning curve for me, but I would love to, on the next session, help bring back and pass the McNeil-Turner Voting Act. That seems like a basic here in Georgia. But most importantly, I think as a mom, I'm all about teaching my kids how to do better and be productive citizens in society. So I think we need to stop rewarding bad behavior, and we need to get Ed Setzler out of office.
Yes.
And like I just keep saying, wouldn't it be poetic justice if it was a woman that gave him the vote? So I don't care about performative politics. Honestly, I'm just an average person that wants to focus on the needs that our families and our district and our state face. I'm interested in working across party lines to dial down the rhetoric. I think that's necessary. But kids deserve leaders who model respect and good behavior. That is instrumental. So I will do that at the state level. Elected officials are servants. I think we never need to forget that. And at my heart and my core, I am a servant leader. So my job is to listen to the people of Georgia, to be willing to learn, to study the issues, to seek out experts, so then I can have the knowledge base to craft policy, and then also bring attention to issues that matter to the vast, but not just the few, special interests. I plan to stand alongside people that are suffering and then work with the organizations that are in the field doing the work, because that's the powerful work of the minority, right? We still have a ways to go before we flip to majority in the Georgia Senate. But the very first time I went to the Capitol, most of you have probably been down there, right? So you're walking up MLK and there's the Gold Dome, and there's churches across the street, and there's lots of homeless people out the day that I was there. And I believe in treating homeless people as if they were your peers. You don't ignore them. You just say hello, and like they were. They are our fellow brothers and sisters. So I just went up to this one fella and I was like, "Hey, it's my first time at the Capitol. Do you know where do I go? So there's a bunch of stairs. Where's the front door?" And he's directing me. He's like, "Oh no, it's just around there." I'm like, "Thank you, sir." And I'm walking away and I'm thinking, I'm about to walk into the Gold Dome of the state of Georgia, where they're making laws that affect these folks right here. Yet we have mass amounts of homeless people all around the Capitol. We're right here in Cobb County. That disparity in my mind, I really struggle with how much wealth and prosperity that we have, but we're not meeting those basic needs for those folks. I don't have the answer to that. So if you ask me right now what I'm going to do about it, I don't know what to tell you. But I will tell you that I have a deep desire and a willingness to learn but to serve others. That is me at the core of my heart. So I need to learn, and I hope that you all in this room will help me do that. I am a listener. If if you feel really strongly about something, like please tell me and educate me so that I can be a servant leader, not only for District 37, but for the entire state of Georgia. So thank you so much.
Because we have other speakers. Mark,
Hi, Mark.
I'm sorry. Mark, you've already asked a question. Hang on, I'm going to go to Mary.
Whoa, big responsibility. All right. Thank you so much for running against that assessment. Moral injury that we've suffered this week, and then maybe smaller being represented by Ed Sessler. It really means a lot to me that somebody's running. And something I wanted to ask the folks before, but who's not here and who's not voting and who's not out in the street are young people. Mm-hmm. And I'm hearing you say things that I think but we're very proud of saying young people here. There's always exceptions, right? But that's who's not voting, and I'm glad to hear you say things that I think would inspire them, and I want to hear maybe how you can reach them, because you need to go where they are. Because we need them to be engaged in.
No, you are 100% correct. You are 100% correct about that, and that's something that I really care about as a mom of young adults. I mean, my youngest is just about to, my oldest is just about to turn 20, and she has voted in every single election. We vote together now that my mom's here. My mom goes too. Like, it's a family affair. It's something we're really proud of. So I've worked hard to instill that in my own children. But I'm also a member of the League of Women Voters. I was a member out of state, and now I'm a member here. So I do believe voting rights is so important, but civic engagement is important. And yeah, there's a lot of young people that, understandably so, I feel like they feel a little apathetic because maybe they see the older generations as failing them because we have taken a lot of things for granted, right? And maybe we haven't been as involved as we can, but I see a hunger in them. So as a mom, I get a little disappointed when I hear a lot of people talking about kids these days. They drink too many lattes, and all that, I don't see it. What I see in young people are people that are legitimately frightened for their future. I've got my kids saying that they don't want to have children because of the world that they're coming into. Like, that is real. And they're like, we're never going to have a place to live. Like, we owe it to them. Yes. We owe it to them to step up and do the work, but then also show them the way and help them feel empowered. I love young people getting involved in politics. I love Akbar Ali. He's awesome, right? I love these young kids that are stepping up and doing the work, because this isn't comfortable. Like, I might sound like I'm doing okay, but I'm terrified. Like, I could be at home hanging out with my kids and my cats, but I'm here, right? So, like, we're showing them that you can do the hard, uncomfortable things. But I have been, because I have a student at KSU, I also am very good friends with Dr. Darcy Castro, who's been a really good mentor to me. He's a political science professor at KSU. So I have been engaged with students there. I've gone to the Young KSU Democrats meeting. I'm trying to, help them get started. But actually, next week, I'm going to be just going and standing with a student who's on my volunteer squad. And we're just going to go stand out at KSU, and he's going to hold up a sign, and I'm going to wear my free mom hug sweatshirt, and we're going to just engage with students. And I'm going to do that a few times on campus to let kids know that they are valuable, they are part of the process, and we want them and we need them.